morning, it's 7:15. Mr. Carlson, it's 7:15 if you want to make that bus to the airport. You're welcome. The bus for the airport.
This is a rush. They got a special cargo plane waiting to pick up these fuel pumps.
I suppose if it doesn't get to Detroit in time, the production lines will close, huh?
Well, that's exactly the case.
Okay, don't worry. It's on its way.
You have my reservation? Oh, thank you so much for calling. My daughter's going to have a baby, and I must be there.
I'm sorry, dear. Haven't got time.
I suppose you'll have your second cover, that blonde stewardess.
Oh, you're wrong. She's a brunette. Here, Jack. Take this over to Joe Capps at the City Market. Tell him to say one for me.
Okay, Mr. Purdy.
Oh, hello, Joey.
Hi, Mr. D. Hi. Where you going, Jimmy? Out to the airport. My brother's coming home. It's his birthday. Yeah? How long's he been away? 2 whole years. Come on, Jimmy.
I don't know why you don't allow yourself more time. What if you should miss the plane?
Don't worry, I won't.
What makes you so sure?
Not with you driving, my dear.
Huh.
There's the airport right over there.
Already? You know, it seemed a lot further out when I was out here before.
It was. We thought we were putting it way out from town, but the town built up and spread out and built all around it.
You know, that seems to happen everywhere. You put an airport out in the middle of nowhere, and the first thing you know, it's right in the middle of everything.
Seems to act like a magnet, especially for business and industry. Not 10 years ago, I could have bought land out here for $100 an acre.
How'd you people happen to locate here?
Well, the airport had as much as anything to do with it.
That's so?
We sell a lot of stuff to mail order houses. Nowadays, the buyers like to come around and see who they're doing business with. We figured we'd see more of them if they could fly in and out on the same day.
Very interesting.
What's the matter, driver?
I don't know. It looks like a traffic tie-up of some kind.
What is it, an accident?
I don't know. There seems to be something blocking traffic at the gate.
Closed. What gives?
What is this, a joke?
What's going on here?
I don't get it.
I don't either.
Let's go find a telephone.
Let's go.
Harry? Fred? Oh, operator? Operator? Operator. Oh, no. Mr. Withers? Mr. Withers? You might as well come out and show yourself, Mr. Withers. I know you're up to your old tricks again.
I'm right here, Tommy.
Mr. Withers, do you know what you've done this time?
Of course. I closed the airport.
But why? Please, tell me why.
It annoyed me.
Well, now, look, Mr. Withers, you simply can't do a thing like this.
Why can't I? It's built on my land, isn't it?
Your land?
I bought it from the government when I wasn't hardly more than a youngster. I paid $1 an acre for it, and I cleared it myself, too. Every last stump.
That was years ago.
Time. What's time got to do with it?
It means you don't live here anymore.
Who says I don't?
Oh, come on, Mr. Withers. Let's face facts. You don't even live.
My boy, I'll have you know, people like me never die.
All right, but you can't close an airport like this and get away with it.
Who says I can't? You ever hear what I did to that first railroad that tried to come through here?
The L&R?
That's right, the L&R. I blocked them at every turn, in, court, and out. They never did get the right of way.
So you were the one that stopped the L&R from coming to Middle City?
Sure was. But that's nothing to what I did to the trucking industry. I have those boys running around in circles.
You mean you tried to stop the trucks, too?
Yeah, sure did. Fact is, in the beginning, I tried to stop the whole automobile industry. I couldn't see any reason for all those cars running around, smelling up the countryside, scaring the horses. But some young fellow out in Detroit got the jump on me. He learned to build cars faster than I could keep up with him.
I still don't understand why you want to close the airport.
Well, let's say just because I dislike flying machines, my boy.
Why?
They're against nature. If God intended people to fly, they'd have been born with wings.
Why, Mr. Withers, don't you believe in progress?
Not when it makes noise enough to wake the dead.
Oh. So that's what woke you up?
Yeah, sounds like the crack of doom.
What you heard were jets.
Jets? What are jets?
Those planes, over there.
Oh, those.
Those planes are this country's first line of defense.
First line of defense? What's become of the warships?
Oh, we have those, too, but things are moving so fast these days.
Middle City Tower, this is Global 19.
Global Flight 19, Middle City Tower, over.
This is Global 19. We're in range. Request landing instructions. Go away.
Did I hear right?
I don't know.
I'll call again. Middle City Tower, this is Global 19, in range, requesting landing instructions. Over.
Go away. Land someplace else. This airport is closed.
Mr. Withers.
Closed? Well, that's impossible. Yeah, but who closed it? Well, find out and let me know. Get me the manager of the airport.
Hello? Oh, yes, Mayor Holly. Closed? Oh, you're joking. No, of course I didn't close it. Yes, sir, I'll get right out there.
We interrupt this program to bring you a special announcement. We have just learned that the Middle City Airport was mysteriously closed.
No one seems to know why it was closed or who closed it. However, it has caused one of the biggest traffic tie-ups in the history of the city.
Roads leading to the airport are blocked. I repeat, roads leading to the airport are blocked.
Nobody seems to know any more about it than we do. I hear planes, but they can't land.
But this is fantastic. I never heard of anything so silly in all my life. What time does the London plane leave New York?
In about 3 hours.
And if you don't catch the plane, you lose the sale?
Yeah. May even have to shut down our plant.
Let me through, please. Excuse me. Anybody here got a hacksaw?
Yeah, I got one in my truck.
Get it.
Sure.
Look at them out there. Milling around like ants trying to get into their anthill.
Mr. Withers, you don't know how serious this is.
Oh, nonsense. Hey, you, get away from that lock. Get away, I tell you.
It's charged.
And keep away, you hear?
Please, Mr. Withers, listen to me. Think what you're doing to people.
Nobody's getting hurt. Is he?
Nobody's getting hurt, huh? Are you crazy? Look here. I want to show you something.
What's that?
That's a radar scope. We use it to track planes in flights. For your benefit, I'm going to have it do tricks. This is what's happening in Detroit.
Jake, we got to shut down the line.
Why?
Middle City Airport is closed.
So what?
We ran out of fuel pumps. We were flying in a special shipment from Middle City, and now nobody knows when it's going to get here.
Boys won't like it.
Neither will the front office.
Nobody's getting hurt? What about all those men on the assembly line who are going to be laid off?
Well, they probably need a vacation anyway. I understand that's very nerve-wracking work.
Oh, Mr. Withers. Look here. This is Florida.
Hello, Mr. Grant. Got your flowers all packed, ready to ship. What? You want a council? What do you mean your airport's closed? How else can I ship? But they're all cut and packed. What am I going to do with them? Yeah, you can say that again.
What do you think he's going to do with them, Mr. Withers?
Why worry about a few flowers?
A few flowers? Do you realize thousands of dollars worth of flowers are flown in here every week?
In my day, we used to grow our own flowers.
Uh-oh. Here come the police.
What's going on here anyway?
Well, I don't know. Somebody's locked the gate and we can't get in.
Who locked it?
I have no idea.
Why don't you try cutting the padlock?
Well, we've tried that, but the gate's charged.
Charged?
With electricity.
Okay, then we'll break it down.
What with?
I'll call headquarters and have them send a bulldozer.
Oh, no, you don't.
Sweet, Mr. Withers.
The radio is out.
What? There's something fishy about this whole thing.
Mr. Withers, you don't know what you're doing.
Of course I know what I'm doing. I'm engaged in the project of slowing things up a little. I'm sick and tired of seeing people rushing around like so many chickens with their heads cut off.
But there are times when speed is necessary.
Oh, nonsense, my boy. Half the people rush off somewhere only to turn around and rush right back again. There's absolutely no reason for it.
No reason, huh? Look here, Mr. Withers. What about this boy who's just getting home from overseas?
Daniel Dietz? Daniel Dietz?
Right here.
From Middle City?
Yes, ma'am.
I'm terribly sorry, Danny, but we'll have to ask you to report to the waiting depot until we can arrange for transportation for you.
Transportation, but I'm supposed to fly home.
I know, but this morning they closed the Middle City airport, and we don't know when it will open again.
Closed?
That's what they tell us.
What about my family? They were expecting me. This is my birthday.
Now, don't worry, Danny. We'll see that you get home all right in a couple of days.
Couple of days.
A couple of days, Mr. Withers.
All right. What's a couple of days?
Well, have you any idea what a couple of days mean to that boy or his parents?
Oh, fiddlesticks.
They're waiting out there beyond the gate in the car with the two children.
Hey, that's John Dietz, isn't it?
That's right.
I knew his father. Oh, he was a fine man. I helped him get started. But then he got ambitious and he wouldn't listen to my advice, so he went bankrupt.
Oh, has it ever occurred to you that John Dietz might not have gone bankrupt if you hadn't stopped so many new plants and new payrolls from coming to Middle City?
What do you mean?
Take a look at this. This is a company that wanted to locate here about 50 years ago. But you didn't want them. Too dirty, you said. They employ about 5,000 men now. And this is another company that wanted to come in here. You didn't want them either. You said you didn't want flying machines buzzing around over the city. Today, this company employs more than 8,000 men. Payrolls like that would have made quite a difference to Otto Dietz's business, wouldn't they?
I was thinking of the best interests of the whole city.
Are you sure, Mr. Withers?
Of course I do. Why, I love this town. I was one of its founders.
And you still think you're acting in its best interest when you have its airport closed?
Yes, by George, I do. We were doing all right before we ever got the airport, weren't we?
Mr. Withers, do you have any idea what air transportation can mean to a city today?
Yes, it can be an awful nuisance.
Here, let me show you something. Here's one of the busiest airports in the world. More people come here by air than by any other means of public transportation. In fact, more people here owe their jobs to air transport than to any other industry. 1 out of every 7, to be exact.
1 out of every 7?
Kind of bowls you over, doesn't it?
Well, it's not like that in Middle City.
Not yet, but it can be. Well, what's that?
It's a...
What goes on here, officer?
Well, the gate's locked and the whole airport's shut down.
Well, I've got a sick youngster in here that's got to fly to Philadelphia for an emergency operation.
Oh, that must be the little Cartwright girl.
Cartwright?
The daughter of George Cartwright.
Oh, good heavens, she's my great-great-granddaughter.
Uh-huh. I know.
Yeah, that's her, all right. Why, she's so pale.
There's something the matter with her heart. That's why they're flying her to Philadelphia for an operation.
Well, why do they sit there? What are they waiting for?
For you, Mr. Withers.
For me? Oh.
You see, Mr. Withers, flying affects everybody. Even you.
Yes. Yes, I see what you mean.
We're living in a new age, the air age. And we're all in it together. Whether we like it or not, we can't turn back the clock. Now, what do you say, Mr. Mr. Withers? Mr. Withers?
Let's face it, Mayor Holly, someone must have ordered it closed.
We'll know who did it.
And if so, why? Now, look, boys, we're just as much in the dark as you are. All we know, it was closed and it happened. We don't know how. Apparently, there are forces at work beyond our control.
You mean supernatural?
I can't say that. I won't say that.
Middle City Tower, this is Global 19, over Bow and VFR.
Request landing instructions, over.
Global Flight 19, Middle City Tower. Cleared to land, straight in, runway 2.
Report passing range station.
Runway 2. Roger. Global 19, out.
Oh, will miracles never cease? He's gonna fly.
Bye, Tommy. Goodbye. But don't you get any ideas of flying to the moon, or I'll be back.
And furthermore, Dean Manning, this is the third time Gates has submitted a practical fantasy, and I had to flunk him. I know in his case it means discontinuing his graduate work, but, well, he asked for it. Well, do you agree?
Mm-hmm.
Well, shouldn't we get it over with quickly?
What was the problem you assigned your class, Dr. Harkness?
Well, I required a practical architectural solution to the problem of suburban living, where the people go into the cities to work every day. And from Gates, I get this. Residences built right over the offices. No specifications, no details, no bill of materials, a complete fairy tale city. I felt obliged to fail him.
Well, Dr. Harkness, you have that authority. Come in.
Dean, you know anybody who wants to buy a set of drawing instruments almost new?
Yes, could be.
Oh, good. I'll settle for $15, and I'll leave them here with you.
All right.
My ideas are too far-fetched for the architecture profession, it seems.
Oh?
Well, if a man's ideas are too far-fetched, he should get out, shouldn't he?
By all means, Mr. Gates.
I just don't think like a builder.
Then you should quit. And all those men would have been better off if they had quit.
Yeah? Who are they?
They're all men who had far-fetched ideas. You're probably heading for the same kind of trouble.
Trouble? What trouble?
I'll show you. Come over here and we'll go through my own personal little hall of fame.
Well, Dean Manning, I have an appointment with the registrar in 3 minutes to check out.
Oh, good. Glad you've got plenty of time.
But, Dean, I said I'm in a hurry.
Fine. I don't like to go through this quickly. Come over here. Come in. You see, for centuries, Gates, all construction leaned on these three principles: the post and lintel, the masonry arch, and the simple truss. So all building was a slow, expensive process requiring great masses of material. One log on top of another log, one at a time, slowly, tediously. One stone on another stone, one brick on another, in great thickness. Then along came one of those eager, enthusiastic men, James Bogardus. He didn't want to build of wood or brick or stone. He wanted cast iron. Was he headed for trouble? Oh, he did build a cast iron building in New York in 1848. Plenty of trouble. Everybody laughed. Of course, he did start the nation's history of using metal in buildings. Then here's more grief. A man by the name of Peter Cooper wanted to make timbers out of wrought iron instead of wood. Everybody laughed. Of course, he did make possible the most momentous single development in building since the Romans.
What was that, sir?
Well, you see, about that time, another wild-eyed man was headed for grief over in Chicago. A fellow by the name of Major LeBaron Jenney. He decided the world had been wrong for 20 centuries. For 20 centuries or so, we'd been making the walls of buildings hold up the buildings. And that meant great masses of building material, bulky, heavy, expensive. Then along came this Major Jenney. He said, throw out the importance of the walls. Walls are only to enclose space against weather. Build a skeleton. Take Mr. Cooper's ridiculous iron timbers, the Major said. Make them of steel and put up a strong skeleton. Then hang the walls on the skeleton. Make the walls thin, light, very light. Oh, how they laughed at that idea in 1883. It's the price of pioneering. Of course, the Major did build the world's first skyscraper. Now, you see, man had a theory of construction which would allow buildings to be built faster, lighter, cheaper. If only...
If only what, sir?
Well, that's where John Wallace Page came in.
Never heard of him.
No, few have. But in a way, he built our great cities.
Architect or something?
No, farmer.
Farmer, sir?
A farmer. Out in Lenawee County, Michigan, had cows. Page made his great contribution to building. He picked up a short wire and wove it vertically across his horizontal strands. Then another. And then many. As he worked, he built a better fence, it's true. But more important, notice he began to get rigidity. From this humble beginning, a pattern was suggested to mankind for a reinforcing device of great strength. The steel industry and its engineers would take this pattern, as we'll see, to build our cities.
Wire cities?
Yes, we began to build wire cities.
Oh, you mean reinforcement?
Of course.
Well, the principle of wire reinforcement's nothing spectacular. Now it's simple.
All great concepts are simple, Mr. Gates, after they have first been wild ideas. Every generation wonders how the last could be so slow. You probably think Dr. Harkness' generation's slow, and mine. Well, anyway, about 3 years after John Page's fence, along came Elihu Thompson with a seemingly unlikely idea of welding with electricity. It worked well enough, though, so that John C. Perry coupled that idea to the wire. So he taught men how to make wire fabric so fast and in such vast quantities that he sparked the next great construction development and earned for himself a niche among the builders. Because now, in wire mills across this nation, mile after mile after mile of hot-rolled, coiled rod went singing through the wire-drawing dies to be formed into something new, a new kind of reinforcement, much stronger, much heavier than fencing. It went into wire welding machines to be formed into welded wire fabric. It came out by the roll, came out by the acre, as it still does. This was the backbone of a new structural age we were making. And we began producing backbone by the carload. We produced enough to rebuild the cities of 2 continents. The man in the street didn't know much about this. He seldom saw it, for backbones don't show. But this was the stuff that was to make possible Major Jenny's preposterously thin walls. But walls were only the beginning. For once man had possessed himself of a reinforcing material like this, he found many uses for it. He could easily and quickly lay it in roadbeds over long distances, in great widths, at great speeds. You can see that by overlapping our steel reinforcement, we make our highways continuously tough. You can see how this reinforcing fabric distributed the load over a large network of steel. And it takes no engineer to understand what wire fabric reinforcement meant to our highways, with its ability to tie together long strips of concrete, to spread stress over its vast network, dividing the load over a big area, to resist destructive forces. Picture the forces at work in an unreinforced highway. Notice that when a fracture occurs, and concrete inherently may crack regardless of joint spacing, the entire load is carried first by the pavement on one side of the crack and then by the other. Many repeated wheel loads passing over the open crack result finally in permanent damage and deterioration of the pavement. Now let's start over and watch the same action in a highway reinforced with wire fabric. Cracks here are never as frequent or as wide, because if a crack does occur, the reinforcement holds the crack edges close together, and as a result, both pavement slabs, instead of one, carry the load. Thus, damage and deterioration are prevented. The highway remains intact and smooth. And here is the result. Long, smooth highways with fewer joints, more protection against frost, moisture, shrinkage. And asphalt-finished highways are greatly improved by laying welded wire fabric on the roadbed and tying it together to form a continuous reinforcement of steel. the welded wire fabric binds and holds the asphaltic concrete surface. And the road builders could build in the modern mechanized manner. And when there were roads, the builders took welded wire fabric into their tunnels to bolster their portals and to reinforce man's spectacular shortcuts through nature. So you can almost say John Page's idea is now holding our nation together with a network of reinforced turnpikes, parkways, and superhighways. And of course, that's only the beginning. For years, whenever we sought to reinforce a project, we looked for something rigid, which was at the same time flexible, light, welded wire fabric. When embedded in concrete, it can stand great local stress and at the same time distribute pressures over large areas. In an oversimplified illustration, imagine you could see the fabric in this concrete slab. As load is applied here, its effect is reduced by being spread out over a broad network of steel. And if the strain increases on a local area, notice how it spreads out in concentric circles, like ripples on a mill pond. Now, given a principle like that, construction men will immediately say, what better for reinforcing the floors of our buildings? Distribute the weight over a large network of wire. Well-constructed, long-lasting floors are one of the large factors in the resale value of commercial buildings. And of course, with wire fabric, we don't need to allow for the human failing of leaving part of the area unreinforced. Welded wire fabric is a network of reinforcement. Displacement of members does not occur. Thoroughness is welded in. And for the rooftops, we demand the same kind of continuous strength over our heads. John Perry's time-tested idea of welded wire also binds our roofing concrete. And since we demand speed, we buy our roofing reinforcement by the roll these days and put it on fast. Whether we're covering with concrete or any other fireproof roofing material, like gypsum. And below the roof, we wrap our structural steel columns and beams with wire fabric to bind a fireproofing coat of concrete around our steel skeleton. So all the way across our construction skyline now, we've reinforced the city with wire fabric. The skeleton concept of Major Jenny has come to life, because as soon as you can reinforce a skeleton, you can pile one floor on top of another floor until you seem to strain the Major's concept to the limit. But when you think you've reached the very top, you begin to see that the more you can reinforce, the lighter the materials you need, the thinner you can build the walls, like the Major said, the higher you can build. We can design wire fabric right into our building materials, as in precast channel slabs for roofs and floors. And we can stockpile them ahead of the builder's requirements, ready for their call, either in standard sizes or to their specifications. Here we build a wall panel at the factory. We can do that now because we have a reinforcing principle which can be bonded into building materials at the factory, saving one more step on the actual job site. Because notice the panel gets a complete finishing job before it ever leaves the plant. This prevents cluttering up the location, getting in the builder's way. This also means you can build faster, no waiting for concrete to cure on the job. Your building will rise as fast as you can erect the panels. And the Major would have been surprised to see how perfectly our prefabricated walls fit together on his skeleton. This is Mr. John Q. Citizen. He sees the building contractor using welded wire fabric. The farmer. The highway engineer. And he brings the idea back to his hometown. Back to 1090 Maple Avenue, where his neighbor has a problem, right in his driveway. You don't have to draw a picture of what happens to unreinforced concrete for folks on Maple Avenue. They have a diagram of it right in the driveway. But have you seen what Fred's doing next door? Let's go look. The difference is progress or reinforcement. Mr. Homeowner is finding out that he can buy strength and permanence in handy sizes. He can get it from his neighborhood dealer and install it himself. For a few additional cents per foot, he can assure himself of a long-lasting, permanently smooth driveway. Now, since Fred has seen the importance of reinforcement, and since Fred is a taxpayer, why, it's only natural that when they extend the sidewalks in his neighborhood, he's going to want to see them reinforced with wire fabric. Getting so that Mr. Citizen has a comfortable feeling about having this reinforcement principle applied to his streets, his sidewalks. In fact, he now demands it in his basement floor. And he also builds for pleasure around his home in the suburbs because wire fabric has made it economically possible for him to build the concrete recreational facilities, once the private luxuries of emperors and celebrities. It makes his home a playground for his family and his friends. The miracle of the home swimming pool is the result of centuries of visionary thinking by builders who sought to build not only for grace and beauty, they strove also to build stronger, lighter, faster. Their far-fetched dreams made it possible for Mr. and Mrs. America to have a swimming pool in the backyard. And because of welded wire fabric, Maple Avenue came to be a bit closer to both New York and San Francisco. You see, the airport builders early saw what this kind of reinforcement meant to airport development. Wire fabric makes it possible to build more durable runways and thinner, which means economically you can build more of them, faster. Wire fabric also allows you to use longer joint spacing, which means smoother landing for your flying population, as well as more protection against dangerous cracks which may occur during normal usage from 100 causes, which of course means smoother overall operation for the silver giants. That's what it means to the nation. What does it mean to the man in the street? Well, since it's all reflected in the price of his ticket, it means he can travel more safely and economically to either coast for the long weekend. Now, you said your ideas are too far-fetched, John Gates. Too wild. Maybe. But lately, wild ideas are getting pretty routine. What would you say, John Gates, to building the outside walls of a house in a couple of hours? Sure. Even Major Jenny would have smiled. Time was, you saw piles of timber on the building site. Now you see piles of welded wire reinforcement. Because when you have wire fabric, you can build a whole wall at a time. The form lies there on its side. The windows and doors are already in. The plumbing is in. The wiring conduit is in. Even the mail slot and the milk chute are built in. And now we lay in the strength, a double layer of it. And when we finish, these forms become the mold for the walls of a house. They'll be set in place on these ground slabs, which are also reinforced with welded wire fabric. Lay a street full up, or a whole town full. How big can you think? The corners are joined solidly by interlaced welded wire fabric. The space between the forms will be filled with a special type of cellular concrete, which has a high insulating value. Now seal up the corners so that our four wall forms are joined and become the molds for a house. The men on top of the forms begin to pour in concrete through a hose. the mold fills up solid around the wire reinforcement. When the concrete is set, the forms are stripped, and we're ready for the roof. Pretty far-fetched, isn't it, John Gates? A wild idea, isn't it? But there she stands. Not too far behind you, are they, John? Now watch industry take hold of John Perry's idea and build large walls flat on the ground. Same reinforcement, same building material, but a different method. They call it tilt-up construction. Huge wall panels are poured right beside the building foundations and then tilted into place. No transportation involved. Notice again that fewer men are building larger buildings in less time and with smaller masses of materials. Here, only a few men build this great wall section and guide it gently into place, knowing it will fit precisely. Which necessarily means we complete these factory buildings faster and more economically. So, in a very direct way, welded wire fabric and the resulting tilt-up technique is reinforcing the nation's plant production capacity beyond what Major Jenny would have dared suggest. And the Major was not a timid man, remember? With the arrival of this versatile, workable reinforcing material, the far-fetched dreams and schemes of one began to reach for the sky. And if you know America, you know Radio City in New York, Merchandise Mart in Chicago, the Mile High Center in Denver, the Statler Hotel in Los Angeles. Things reinforced by welded wire fabric. You know that they are... But as you say, Gates, that's not your kind of work.
Now, wait a minute, Dean.
So you see, Gates, the history of building is really only the history of how to reinforce a bold idea.
You're right, Dean.
In other words, a man might design a city where people lived right where they work.
You mean like mine?
If he could reinforce it. Now, to reinforce an idea, we sometimes need a material like steel.
Oh, sorry.
But sometimes people are reinforcers. Yes, even our own Dr. Harkness has reinforced a lot of ideas with his strict demands.
There's quite a hall of fame you have here for the builders, Dean Manning. What's this empty one for?
Oh, that one? Well, that's for some other young man, or old man for that matter. Some wild-eyed fellow with a far-fetched idea. One will come along.
Well, I have to be going.
Miss Wilson, will you ask Dr. Harkness to come in, please? Come in.
You wanted to see me, Dean?
Yes, Dr. Harkness. Time ago, you said you wanted to bring your class in here and show them my Hall of Fame. Well, why don't you do it right now, while I go and tell the president why we're dropping Gates?
The president?
Yes. Our mind is made up, isn't it?
Very well. Oh, say, Dean, well, when I bring my class in here to show them your Builders Museum, what about this first niche over here that's...
Oh, this last niche, huh?
Oh, no, sir, the first niche.
This last niche. Well, I'm saving it.
Saving it? For what?
Well, for some leader in architectural thinking who sees a practical reality in a far-fetched idea. You know.
Oh, I see. Very well, sir. I'll bring my class right in. Dean, there's no special hurry about seeing the president about Gates. I might just see if he has any substantiating data to go along with his drawing. You know, something he forgot to turn in. I might even give him a makeup on this assignment. I said I might give him
Anything you say, Dr. Harkness. I would, of course, insist on seeing any new material you two might come up with before I could let you revise his grade.
Very well, sir.
What's your hurry, John? I haven't kept you waiting so long. No, you can't go, Sandy. You stay here. You stay here.
You know, Mary, I was just trying to figure how many years of my life I've spent waiting for you.
Oh, go along with you. You're probably dozing again.
Oh, no, just taking 40 winks.
Well, for heaven's sakes, don't do it while you drive. You can have your nap later. I want to get to town.
All right, Mary, all right, we're going.
Well, I say the less we have to do with foreigners, the better. We got everything we need right here in this country. We can get along fine without them.
Good morning, John. Good morning, Mrs. Robinson.
Hi, boys. Still sounding off on the foreign menace, Bert?
Says the best thing we can do is mind our own business and let the rest of the world go hang. Well, why not? We got everything we need right here. What do we want from foreigners? The less we have to do with them, the better. Well, I don't know. We use a lot of foreign things, don't we? What do we use? Fancy things we don't need. Don't have to buy anything they make, do we? You'll find made in the USA on about everything worthwhile we use. For instance, take the automobile. There's a good example. The American automobile is the best in the world, and we don't need a thing from any foreign country to make it.
Maybe you got something there, Bert.
Well, I'll bet there are things from foreign countries even in a car. Things you can't see, maybe.
Ah, things you can't see. That falls in my department. And now, gentlemen, take these nuts. You can all see them. Sweet, luscious nuts right out of that pail. And now, gentlemen, if one of you will lend me a handkerchief. Thank you, sir. You're very kind indeed.
Hey, I didn't have any handkerchief.
Now, if this gracious lady will allow me to place the handkerchief in her hand, so, and the nuts in the handkerchief, so, and now, if you will grasp the handkerchief firmly with your other hand, so, we're ready to proceed. There. And now, madam, where are they?
Well, they're right here in my hand.
Exactly. And now, ladies and gentlemen, I propose to make those nuts fade, vanish, and disappear before your very eyes. Please watch carefully. Brazil nuts, away. They came from Brazil. And Where are they now?
Why, they're right here in my... Goodness gracious, John, they're gone. And I was holding them right in my hand, too.
And that, ladies and gentlemen, is but a small part of what you will witness tonight if you will attend my performance of Mystery and Magic at the high school auditorium. Tickets only $50.
Huh. Magic. Well, all I got to say is that magic or no magic, you can't make the fact disappear that automobiles and most everything else we need to get along with are 100% American. And if we stick to that little old trademark, made in the USA, we can save ourselves a lot of headaches, to say nothing of money.
There's John, asleep again. So we're going to give you supper, and you're going to tell us how you did that trick.
Fair enough, ma'am. Now watch the basket. See that coffee? It came from Brazil. Gosh.
For goodness sakes, just like the nut.
You see, folks, my power applies to everything that comes, at least in part, from a foreign country. I mention the country, and presto, it vanishes. Watch the basket. Those bananas came from Costa Rica. The pepper from the East Indies. The cocoa from Africa.
Well, I'll be a son of a gun.
John, be careful! You keep your eyes on the road, or we'll all do a disappearing act.
All right, all right.
It's wonderful, Mr. Magician. But for heaven's sakes, please don't do any more tricks in the car.
Okay, ma'am, I won't. I don't want to land in a ditch either. Besides, driving like that is hard on tires. And you gotta be careful nowadays when you can't get any more rubber from Malaya.
Hey, we've got a flat tire.
They're not flat, John. They just aren't. All four of them aren't.
I'm sorry I mentioned Malaya, Mr. Robinson. It just slipped out. But it goes to show you that our automobile isn't a 100% American product.
Oh, I know about rubber, young fella. But we're going to have all the synthetic rubber we want.
So we are, but your tires weren't synthetic.
No, but the rest of that car is American, all right.
Oh, dear.
What are you all deering about?
Well, I was hoping he could make it all vanish. Then he could get a new car.
Well, you can get a new paint job, Mrs. Robinson.
What for? Paint's been on for 6 years, looks as good as new. Almost.
Well, paint doesn't last like that without a lot of foreign ingredients. Now, let's see. There's lac from India. There's dammer from Malaya. There's tongue and perilla oil from China and Japan.
Well, as I live and breathe. John, let's have it painted green. And I love red seats. Young man, can't you do something about the upholstery?
Well, why not? The stuffing's got kapok, sisal, and moss from the East Indies, Mexico, Europe.
Now, see here, enough's enough. Anyway, you can't do any more damage. I'll bet my bottom dollar that the rest of this car comes from the good old USA. Don't it?
Oh, not all of it by a long shot. 68 materials that went into it came from 57 foreign countries. Take the engine, for instance.
What's the matter with that engine? Been purring like a kitten for 6 years. Can't tell me that isn't American. Listen. Bearings smooth.
Ah, the bearings. Bronze with tin from Bolivia and the East. And speaking of that engine, the manganese and vanadium in it came from Russia and Peru.
That's the finish. Nothing left but the body, the frame, and the axle.
Well, perhaps the manganese and vanadium in the frame and the axle came from India and South Africa. Yes, they did. And there's your American car.
Oh, John, isn't he wonderful? Now we'll have to get a new one.
Wonderful, eh? Come on, let's start walking. At least our feet were made in America.
Oh, now, then.
Don't say it, mister. Don't say it.
Every time we have anything to do with them, we get into trouble. Look at us now. So I say, leave them alone.
But, mister, we've got to do business with them.
Why? We can make the best of everything right here in the USA.
Sure we can if we have the raw materials to make them from, but we haven't. We have to get lots of them from abroad.
Nonsense. As I said before, you take the American automobile.
You don't know the half of it, Bert.
What's the matter with you? Thought you were asleep.
If you had your way, there wouldn't be any such thing as an American automobile.
Huh. There'll always be an American automobile.
Not if we don't get things from abroad, there won't.
We get lots of raw materials from abroad. Besides, that's the way we get paid for the things that we sell to other countries, by the things they send us. Buying raw materials enables us to sell automobiles.
I say you don't need a thing from foreign countries.
Here's your coffee, Bert. Coffee. Bert, you'll have to take a tumble to things. Catch up with the times you're living in, or you'll be left behind. Come on, Mary, we gotta get home.
Goodbye, young man. We're coming to your performance tonight.
You bet we are.
He's simply wonderful, John. While you were asleep, he did some more tricks. Why, he takes things you thought you knew about all your life. There they are, right before your eyes. And the next instant, they aren't. John, they just aren't.